So first thing, you know, cut the plastic. It's pretty obvious. And I cut inside this groove so that I don't damage the rail, because you won't see inside that groove. This is the bottom section. It comes with your wire already installed and the end cap already screwed on. Here's your extra rack. This is your accessories kit. It comes with the bottom section of the rail. You just cut the tape off. And inside, you'll have the 2 splice bars. You'll have the upper limit cam. You'll have the 4 screws for the top end cap. You'll have a long and short tension screw. You'll have an Allen wrench specifically for this limit cam. And then you will have a bit, a star bit, that's for the top plate screws. And you don't need this anymore. All right. And I would unwrap my top section. Again, I cut inside that groove there so as not to mark up the rail. But you can always wipe the rail off when you're done, which I do generally to make it look nice and clean. There's your top cap. Be careful not to knock that nut out, because it's a pain if you do. And you have your charge strips, your top section. And I generally go ahead and install these now, because you have to connect the charge strips in the center here before you completely attach it. Just kind of straighten it out a bit. Oop. And then just kind of feed it down through the rail. If you have a long piece of rail, you can use like a tape measure or anything you feed through the rail, and you can tie one into this too and pull it through the rail. Whatever works for you is fine. All right, and careful not to cut your cord doing this part. Then I'll go ahead and put my strips in, and they can only go in one way. If you look close on the end here, there's tabs. The long tab goes up, but if you look on the end of the rail, you can actually see where the tabs go. They only fit in one way, so you can't do it wrong. So you put these in, boom, boom, and then fold your little knobs up here all the way down, like so. That way they don't fall straight through. Boom. Go ahead and pull your cord all the way through. Set your top section down. And this is where you'll need your 3/16. Go ahead and take all your screws out. They're not in very tight. Usually you can just twist them out, real simple. All right, so then you'll take your 2 splice bars and insert them with the rounded end coming out, so facing up. That'll make it easier to load your top rack on. Go 2 down. You can see there's 2 holes milled in your rail. You'll line with those 2 holes. And you can go ahead and tighten these two here as tight as you can get them. You want to make sure that the screw is tightened down all the way and that it's flush across here. Otherwise, these will get caught on them. You flip your rail over. Second verse, same as the first. Just throw your screws in. Boom, that's done. This is your bottom section of rail. Here's your top section of rail. You'll take your plug. This is the male end. The female end is on the bottom piece. The male end will be on the top. Plug them in. Take your excess cord. Bundle it up as best you can. Try to keep it as neat as you can, but you're gonna shove it in the rail, so it doesn't really matter. Just be careful not to cut it. And be careful not to cut your hand. The edges of this rail can be kind of sharp. So you tuck that down. So line everything up. Make sure your cord is not being pinched by the rail. That is very, very important. Be careful not to cut that cord. Be careful not to cut your fingers. Slide it in, line up your little pegs here. You want to line them up. Boom. Should fold together nice and neat. Then go ahead, put your other screws in, and again, just like on the first section, you want to make sure they're flush so that your rack will easily slide over them. See, nice and flush. You can go ahead and pull a piece of rack down. Boom. It should be nice and smooth. And then go ahead, flip it over. Put your other pins in there. It's not as important that they're super flush here, but once you tighten them, they should automatically be flush. All right, so now I go ahead, slide all of my rack down, leaving a gap here, and this will make it easier to load your carriage. So what I usually do is I'll come in here. This is your box, your chair box. Take the lid off of here. Cut a piece off, like so. Fold it in half, roughly in half, doesn't really matter. And that'll give you about your 1/2 inch right there. It'll also protect your floor. Position it about where you want it. Put your rail here. I use my foot to keep my rail in place as it's smashing the floor. And typically, I would put my tool bag in front and let the rail slide to its stop. This way you don't damage your floor or anything like that. You have to open up the chassis box. It's stapled together, you just pull it apart. And the first thing you'll see in your chassis box, careful not to let these staples cut you, by the way, is you'll see this box on top. This is your legs. Go ahead and open that up. And to begin with, you'll only need 2 of the legs. Go ahead and unwrap them. And you'll put one on the bottom step and one on the top. Start on the bottom and you will loosen this nut all the way to the end on both, because you're going to bend this tab out to attach it to the rail. To do that, you can either turn it on its side like this. As you can see, there's a sticker here, and you want this to point towards the wall, like that. So you just pull down, it's real easy. It kind of bends for you a little bit. And then you repeat that process for your top one. So you slide it in here, bend it down, like that, simple. And you'll slide them into place. And if you look, these screws have a little square collar, and they will slide into place here, and that will stabilize them. And then you just go ahead and hand tighten these nuts back up for now on the top, because we'll set the bottom leg first. And this is where your 1/2 inch standard wrench is going to come into play. So again, get it in your collar, hand tighten. And right now I'm looking mostly to position it on the step vertically, not horizontally. So what I do is adjust so that I'm a 1/2 inch off the floor down here. So the very end of your rail should be about 1/2 inch off the ground. And you can use your little cardboard as your guide. And once you get it where you're happy, use your 1/2 inch wrench. And you'll come and tighten the top screw first, because the top screw is the one that tightens the leg to the rail. So that's the top bolt tightens the rail to the leg. So once you're in position, you're going to want to tighten that first. And I'll show you with the top leg. You'll be roughly 1 inch from the edge of the step to the edge of the leg. That's typically where they'll set. I'm gonna go ahead and set this top. So I'm just tightening this nut so that the rail doesn't slide along the legs, because you have them positioned where you want them. And now, since this one has a gap here, or a link where the two rails come together, you will need to put a leg on either side of that link. And that's for structure. So once you have your legs positioned vertically on the step where you want them, you'll go ahead and tighten this bottom bolt too. And this kind of sets the leg at the correct position. The carriage is kind of heavy. It's actually the heaviest box of all 3 packages. So to make it a little easier to bring it up the stairs, you can leave it in the box since it has handles. Bend with your knees. And this way you can kind of easily walk it up the steps. Place it where you're gonna be. Then unbox it. You'll have your charger. It's in this white box. Owner's manual, remotes, we'll get to that. And your foam packing, you won't need, just throw it down the steps. Then inside here, you'll have your carriage. Do you want to get a shot in here? And you'll carefully pull it out. The foam. Set it on your step. And get rid of your box. Walk it down or just toss it down the steps. All right, now you're going to load the carriage. When you load the carriage, there is the emergency crank port. It's right here. That always goes downhill. So when you get ready to load it, I typically hold it under here, by the back here. This way you have some control and you can kind of lean on your knee. And you'll slide it into the grooves as so. And I watch down like this to make sure I can watch it the whole way. And now, this is really important. Hang on to it, do not let it go once it's on the rail. You don't want it to slam. You want it to come to a stop easily, like that. All right, so now we're going to unpack your chair box. It has your normal packing, styrofoam and whatnot, keep the chair safe in transport. And there'll be a smaller box inside. This is your footrest. This is actually what you're going to use first. Maybe set it down so it doesn't fall. And you'll have another little box inside. This is your swivel. And then last, you just tear the packing plastic off. You'll have your chair. It's right here. And you want to set it down gently. You want to make sure not to damage this cord. And I usually just lay it flat on the ground till I need it. All right, so first, you'll need your swivel box and your footrest box. And bend at your knees, all that good stuff. Walk it all the way up. Set it on your top landing. And then you'll open it inside. You'll have your footrest. And it's a little heavy, so be careful with it. And its cover. And we'll get to the cover in a moment. That box is done. And then remove your swivel. All right. And here's where you'll need your 5/16 Allen wrench. Is to loosen these. You can usually kind of loosen them by hand too. Then you'll take your footrest, and if you notice, you have your mounting holes here. So just watch your bolts go into your hole, and it should set down very easy. Unfold your footrest. Unfold your cover, and it'll expose your holes here. And this is to adjust height if you need to. Usually the standard's fine for most people. And if you look down through the holes, you'll see your motor bolts that mount the footrest to the motor. That's your 5/16 wrenches for. You'll take your level. You'll set it on top. This one is already level. That usually does not happen. So you'll have to kind of adjust it. And to do that, you come to these bolts back here and you would loosen them. would just loosen them, just literally like a turn. You wouldn't take them out much. And then you're able to easily shift your footrest back and forth. And you'll get it level. When it's level, tighten your back bolts up again. Then you'll come up here and carefully tighten these so that you don't knock the footrest out of level. You kind of hold it a little and get it nice and tight. Wrench down on it a bit until you can't really turn it anymore. Be careful so you don't hurt yourself. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to find it inside of there, so just take your time. The bottom one you have to do turn by turn. And there's that. Now, you'll take your seat swivel, and if you'll notice, there's a little piece of steel here. This is like a guide. And if you look on top here, there's a groove. That little steel will go right through that groove, and that should line up your swivel post for you. And I typically start these by hand. This will prevent you from cross-threading the bolt. You start it off by hand. It's an 1/8. You just get it tight. It'll kind of snug itself. Oop, that's it. So once your swivel's attached, you put your footrest cover on, and it comes with the little plastic push screws. You just push them into place like so. Bam. Footrest is done. And we'll grab your seat. I typically hold the flap so it doesn't swing down while you're trying to walk up the steps. And then I'll set. And this post, this hole, sit right on top of it. You may have to get down in there and look what you're doing. And you kind of have to play with it a little sometimes to get it to sit. There it went. All right. So before it goes all the way down, you'll actually want to pull this out. Like that. And you can check by simply trying to move the seat. It should be locked into place. All right, so once your seat is attached and locked into place where you can't move it, you'll go ahead and turn your power on. Wait for a beep. Then you'll use your black override switch, and you'll move your motor down, not a lot, just enough to expose the top section of rail so that you can finish the installation here. Then you'll go ahead and turn your power off, and you'll have a 6-pin. This is the footrest connector, and it only goes into its correct plug. Then you'll have an 8-pin. This is your seat connector, and I typically wrap it through here like this to keep the cord from rubbing on the wall or anything, or getting caught on anything. Once those are connected, you're good. Your chair is connected. So now we're going to finish installing the rail. You'll slide your extra pieces of rack in. Okay, this one actually fits perfectly. This does not typically happen. So usually you'll have a bit sticking off the end like this. And what I do is I get the plastic my chair was wrapped in, put it under there. You'll get your hacksaw. You'll line it here where you want it, and make sure to tuck this wire in before you do this so that you don't accidentally cut it or mark it up. Okay, and you'll find your gap. And it's easy to saw it, it's not difficult. Pow. And then you would have, you know, you'll wipe this off. And that would be how you would cut the extra rack off. Again, in this case, we don't actually need it, so we'll just put the full piece of rack in there. This little bit of gap, your tension screw will cover. So, once this is in, your gear rack is cut to where it needs to be. You'll take your limit cam, and it only fits in one way, so you can't put it in wrong. Slide it down flush, and then you'll take the little Allen key that comes in your kit. You go ahead and tighten that, like so. Then you will make sure to pull your little connector back out, because you don't want to have to put the end plate on twice. Okay, so now you'll get your cordless drill. And you'll get your little torque bit that came in your kit. You can kind of go ahead and neatly pull your plastic up. Remember, it has all your dust in it, so careful not to spill it everywhere. Then you'll come here and get your end cap. And if you look, there's a little groove right here. And remember to be careful not to knock your nut out. There's a groove here. That's where your cord goes. And you'll have your little knobs right here. Those are like little lining pegs. They go in these holes here. These 4 on the very end. Like so. You might have to play with it a little to get it set flush. But there you go. Use your torque screw. And these are self-tapping, so you're not really going to be able to start it by hand. So I just kind of get it onto the hole where it's ready. And don't tighten them all the way. You want to give yourself a little place that you can line everything up. So I get them all about like right there. And then I'll go ahead and tighten them down. And you'll kind of feel in your drill, they'll stop. There you go. So this is your torque screw. You'll have 2 that comes in your kit, a long one and a short one. I usually take the longer one for the top plate. And I go ahead and just start it by hand just to get it into place. That's where it goes. And then we're gonna run the chair down and back up, and this will tighten the rack. All right, so now we're gonna tighten the rack. And since your seat is connected, you can actually use your toggle switch to do this. So you'll turn it on, listen for your beep, You'll have to hold the toggle switch the entire time you want it to move, and go just about to the bottom. Be careful that your rail doesn't pop up on you. Then you'll run it back up. And this is tightening this rack. You'll stop here, and then you will cut it off. And at this point, you will tighten your torque screw. Okay, now we're gonna take our Allen wrench, the 1/8 inch one that you used on your swivel post. We're gonna tighten our Allen screw. And since we had a little bit of space on ours, there's a good chance we'll tighten it all the way, but you'll kind of feel it'll come to a stopping point. You'll feel tension. And I go just a little past that tension just to make sure everything stays in place. And there you go. Now we're going to measure our legs horizontally on the staircase to line everything up correctly. You'll need your tape. And what you'll do is take your tape out. I don't know, I usually go out about 1 foot and just turn it into kind of a ruler. And then you'll slide. And you have to at least be 1 inch off your molding, and you measure it by measuring from the side of the edge of the molding to the front edge of this foot. So you have to at least be 1 inch, but what you're really gonna do is you're gonna look up your staircase, and you're gonna look at the back of your chair and make sure that there's no obstructions rubbing on your chair or hitting your chair that would cause injury or damage to the machine. And you would measure your bottom foot, and then you will come up to your top, and you will do the same thing and make sure that they match. I have my bottom set at 2, so now I have my top set at 2. So now you'll need your lag screws. They come in a little bag with your foot or your legs inside of your chassis box. Your cordless drill with your driver extension, and your 3/8 socket. And then you'll come back through, measure again, measure twice, cut once. I'm at my 2. I usually just kind of pour mine out on the step so you can grab them easily. Take one of your lag bolts, and you'll go ahead bolt this at 2. And again, remember, I'm roughly 1 inch from the edge of the step, and I'm 2 inches from the molding to this edge. Then I'll go up top, and I'll repeat that process. Two inches. And I'm going to sink a bolt, and this is just to keep my rail right where I set it so that I can run a final test. So I don't want it to move while I'm doing my final test. So now we're going to do our final test, and this is to make sure that the stair lift will move up and down the rail smoothly with no obstructions without hitting any steps on the way down. To do this, set your footrest down, turn your stair lift on, wait for your beep. You cannot ride it yet, but you can stand with it and simply hold your toggle, slowly kind of just walk it down, making sure you're not hitting any step with your footrest. As you can see, if you hit it, it automatically stops. You can go ahead and check that for safety while you're at it. You'll let it go all the way to the bottom. It'll come to a stop naturally. See how it slows down before it stops? Then you'll run all the way back up. Be absolutely sure you're not going to hit anything. You should be completely clear all the way around. It'll come to its natural stop. Then you'll fold your leg back up, turn it off, and then you'll continue to put a bolt in each hole in each leg all the way up your staircase. So now we're gonna connect your power source, your charger. It comes in two pieces, transformer box and the power cord. And they have little tie wraps on them. Go ahead and remove that. You have about 6 feet or so of cord. So what you do is take this end, little 3-pin plug for the power cord, and it goes right there. Plug it all the way in, and this end would go into your outlet. And then you would have a female plug here. And you'll take your male plug at the end of either end of your rail. It can either be at the top or the bottom. Whichever end has an outlet closest to it is the one you're going to want to use. You plug it in. Then you would plug this in to the outlet, and again, use whichever outlet's closer. You can use the top or the bottom of the rail. Either end should have your little male plug here. And try not to stretch this across the floor or anything like that. You don't want to cause a tripping hazard. You want to keep it as close as you can to the rail, and then you can save your ties. And once you've gotten it where you want it, you can bundle it back up. That's it. So your stair lift will come with a little packet. It'll have an owner's manual, 2 remotes, and it comes with batteries that you'll need to put in the remotes in the back here. And it'll have an extra sticker with the serial number on it. There's one on the machine itself, but I recommend taking this extra one and putting it on the front of your owner's manual in case you ever need to call in about the machine, or in case a tech ever needs to call in about the machine. They'll have the serial number handy right on front of the owner's manual. And then you should take a moment to read through your owner's manual and familiarize yourself with the machine.